coming to you after Colorado Spring Ball Media Day, where we got a chance to talk to both of the new coordinators. We got a chance to talk to Coach Prime for the first time since last season ended, talk to Shedeur Sanders, and maybe the most impressive out of that whole group is somebody that should still be in high school right now.
Yeah, Jordan Seaton was an impressive interview for a senior in college, but he should be a senior in high school right now. Really impressive young man, and physically he's impressive. They hope he's impressive as a player, but from a media perspective, I mean that was top notch.
Yeah, and he said that IMG Academy kind of got him ready for this. He's media savvy already at this young age, and we know one thing about Jordan Seaton: the bright lights are not going to face him at all this year. The question is, though, as a true freshman coming in here, how quickly can you adapt to the speed of the guys you're going against and the strength and the power that you just can't replicate, even at an IMG, as good as the competition is that they face. Shedeur Sanders said that he's actually, I don't think he used the word surprise, but I think he made it sound like Jordan Seaton's gone above and beyond his expectations from when he arrived.
Well, and one thing I like about Jordan is that he was pretty humble about it. He knows he's good, but he said, look, I've got a lot to learn here, and I am leaning on some of these older guys that have been in college, and there's some things I gotta work on here. But yeah, I mean the Buffs expect him to be a key player. Shedeur Sanders has spent a lot of time with Jordan Seaton because he believes Jordan Seaton's a player, and that if he's anywhere near as good as the hype, the Buffs have got themselves a pretty good offensive lineman there.
And going over to Shedeur, he's fully healthy, he said, fully rested, and says he's put on a little bit of weight as well this offseason. We knew that it didn't fit with him and Sean Lewis. It's clear it does fit with Pat Shurmur.
Yeah, and that's the key with the offensive coordinator. And I know a lot of Buff fans were not over the moon about Pat Shurmur being hired as the OC, and that's because a lot of Buff fans are also Broncos fans and have maybe some scars from watching that offense. But the big thing is if your quarterback and OC get along, and they seem to really get along. He likes Pat Shurmur. And Pat Shurmur, I know we're going to get into it, but is very energized, he said, about just being back in the college game for the first time in years and just being around young guys. And I think he's excited about working with Shedeur. And, this is a young man that we know is projected as a high draft pick. Coach Prime took time to say, hey, look, make no mistake, he would have been the number 2 quarterback off the board this year. Shedeur wants to be the number 1 guy next year. A big part of that is he's got to have that trust in Pat Shurmur.
And Pat Shurmur didn't really give us too many clues in terms of what this offense is going to look like. He said, we're going to take the things that we did well last year and scrap a lot of the other stuff that didn't go so well. But one of the first things he said is that we have to establish a run game. And that's going to be kind of the focus in terms of there is so much focus on the O-line, and they will be better. Yeah. But if you don't have if you're one-dimensional offensively, then you're going to have issues. And so him saying that it's a priority, I think, is something that Colorado fans wanted to hear today.
Yeah, and obviously the run game was not good last year, and they need to run the football. I think the other thing that CU fans ought to like that he said was, he was talking about the differences between the college game and the NFL game, and how the NFL is the hash marks are so tight, and you're kind of playing right in the middle of the field. So the college game is more wide open. That's a lot more fun. And so it sounds like he's embracing that idea of that wide open offense, which I know that was a big concern for Buff fans is, what's this Pat Shurmur offense going to look like? It's going to be boring. But he's talking about the wide open offense. I think when you've got a quarterback like that, you've got this room full of talented receivers, you need to use those things, and it sounds like he's going to do that.
And it sounds like both Alton McCaskill and Dylan Edwards are really kind of taking their game to the point that they needed them to. When they decided as a coaching staff not to go to the portal, they needed those 2 guys to have a great offseason, and it does sound like through 2 practices that's happening.
Yeah, and Coach Prime also mentioned Savion Wilkerson and Micah Welch have looked good too. So I still expect them to grab a running back out of the portal at some point, just because Coach Prime even hinted at that. 4 scholarship guys. You also have Charlie Offerdahl there, but that's sort of a small room. But you love to hear that Alton McCaskill is back, and you love to hear that there's a plan for Dylan Edwards, because those are 2 guys that are super talented. That if that's your 1-2 punch, they're healthy all year. That's pretty darn good.
With Robert Livingston taking over the defense, he talks about how he's going to tailor his scheme for the personnel. Yeah. Chris Wilson said that same exact thing, but Chris Wilson didn't have the players that Robert Livingston has to work with.
Yeah, Robert's got a lot more talent to work with, and he is a guy that he cut his teeth on that type of defense is learning how to adapt week after week to different people. And I talked to his college coach a few weeks ago, Bob Shoup, who's now the safeties coach at Marshall, and that's what he said. He goes, Robert will do that because he's just seen different types of football. That he goes, I don't know if he'll have a specific scheme, but he's going to do whatever fits that week. And that's what Livingston said today, and they've got players now that can do that, and especially you look at a key to that. I think is the safety group, and that safety room is so deep and so diverse. I think they have so many options. They can do different things.
And Coach Prime fielded questions for, I think it was about 25 minutes. And maybe the most notable thing was what happened at the very end of his press conference. And he said he was addressing an article that was out there, I think it was by USA Today, that was talking about the fact that he doesn't do in-home visits or go out to high schools. And it makes sense based on what Coach Prime said of why, because he said if I go to one high school and I don't go to the high school that's 10 minutes up the road, then they're going to be upset with that. And he is a different celebrity in the sense that he can't recruit the same way that other coaches do. I've always thought the philosophy was fine because by getting kids on campus, it shows their commitment to Colorado as opposed to maybe wanting just a photo opportunity or to hang out with the greatest defensive back of all time. Getting them on campus at least shows, okay, even if it's an official visit, I'm still making that effort to get out here.
Yeah, and I don't have a problem with Coach Prime, not going on the road. I mean, he is different from other head coaches, and he said that. He's like, they can get away with things that I can't because I'm Coach Prime, and but it's true because he's got so many other engagements and things like that he's doing that I'm not saying that takes away from his coaching, but he is that celebrity that no other coach in college football is, and so I think there's bigger demands on his time. If he goes on the road, I think sometimes maybe he's wasting time that could be used better elsewhere.
Well, yeah, and if you go to see one commit, then you kind of have to go to see all of them, right? Because then the other ones are going to feel left out. And so the other part of it, the more important part of it, the part that I think people should focus more on is that if you look at their overall class rank in terms of transfers and high school signings, they have the best class among future Big 12 programs. So what they're doing here is working. So because it's not conventional, then you have people that are naturally going to, point it out, but that really has not been a problem.
Well, and he also mentioned that, look, the in-home visits are pretty much most of what we're doing is through the transfer portal anyway. Why do I need to go to some guy's house? I mean, he's 22 years old. What he wants to hear is, how can you get me to the league? What am I going to get paid? How are you going to, develop me? And that's the most important things to those guys. And they've only signed 6, 7 high school kids. So, it's less important when you're relying on that transfer portal.
Yeah. Any other takeaways from Coach Prime's portion of today's Media Day event?
No, I mean, it was good to hear from him. We haven't heard from him since the end of the Utah game, but he addressed a lot of different things, and he talked again about the run game. And he mentioned at the end of the Utah game, priority 1A and 1B this year were stopping the run and running the football, and they addressed that, right? They went out and got some offensive linemen. They've got defensive linemen. Alton McCaskill's healthy, and so he understands the importance of that. He also talked about there are things Shedeur can do to get better and improve his game, but that obviously that's the guy they're relying on. And so it was just good to hear from Coach Prime again, and us get a chance to talk to him a little bit about this spring.
They're going to practice on Friday. No media availability on Friday, though. And then spring break, and then we'll be back. And April's going to be a busy month. Still no TV for the spring game yet, and they haven't put out the tickets for sale quite yet. But it's going to be a fun month around here.
Yeah, and I hadn't thought about this before, but Coach Prime mentioned that obviously last year they were on ESPN. Well, the spring game is the same day as the final day of the NFL draft. ESPN's a little busy with the NFL draft that day, so there's a conflict there. So it's going to be interesting to see. I think they're waiting on all that to announce ticket sales, but it's kind of interesting to see what they're going to do with that. There's obviously some opportunities there to broadcast that.
And you're heading out to Manhattan, Kansas to cover the CU women's basketball team in the NCAA tournament. So safe travels out there. And we'll see if Tad Boyle's program can make a run in the big dance as well. And we'll be back with more football analysis after spring break.